The school bell rings, signaling the start of another day at a one-room schoolhouse. Welcome back to our channel where we bring history to life for you. Today we're going inside an 1800s classroom to see how a lesson was taught and what we can learn from it. So grab your slate and take your seat because you're now part of the class. It wasn't uncommon for students of different ages to share a classroom. In this setting, learning wasn't just confined to rows of desks facing a chalkboard, but was a shared experience that fostered a sense of community. After the formalities, the reciting of rules, and the reading of scripture, the lesson would begin. Imagine sitting at a rough-hewn desk made from planks of wood, the surface worn smooth by countless hands that had come before yours. The room is dimly lit by a single window, casting long shadows that dance with the motes of dust suspended in the air. Your teacher, Miss Eliza Johnson, stands tall, her voice ringing with enthusiasm. She holds a book aloft, its pages filled with tales of distant lands and times. The book, your window to the world beyond your small town. But it's not just about stories. This book is a tool for learning. Miss Johnson uses it to teach reading, writing, and arithmetic, the fundamental subjects of the time. Reading from the book, she emphasizes each word, stressing the syllables and pausing for effect. Her eyes sweep across the class, ensuring that every student is engaged, listening intently as the words paint pictures in their minds. During these lessons, the older students were expected to assist their teacher, helping the younger ones who struggled with the written word. It was a collaborative effort, a testament to the belief that education was not a solitary pursuit, but a shared responsibility. After reading, Miss Johnson would ask questions about the passage. Where did the story take place? Who were the main characters? What did they do? These questions aimed not just at checking comprehension, but at nurturing critical thinking. Students raised their hands, eager to show what they had learned. Their answers rang out in the room, echoing with youthful enthusiasm. Miss Johnson nodded, offering words of praise when they got an answer right, gently guiding them back to the correct path when they stumbled. The atmosphere was one of mutual respect and encouragement, where mistakes were seen as opportunities for growth and learning. But the lesson didn't end there. Miss Johnson believed in a holistic approach to education. She understood that learning was not merely about absorbing facts, but about developing well-rounded individuals. So after the reading and discussion, she turned to the subject of penmanship. Writing neatly was highly valued in society, seen as a sign of discipline and attention to detail. With slates in hand, the students practiced forming letters, each stroke guided by Miss Johnson's patient instructions. They wrote sentences, their pens scratching on the rough surface, creating loops and swirls that transformed words into works of art. As the morning wore on, the lesson shifted to arithmetic. Miss Johnson, recognizing the importance of numbers in everyday life, made math an integral part of the curriculum. From simple addition to more complex calculations, the students tackled problems together. They worked individually, then shared their solutions, explaining their reasoning. Miss Johnson praised their efforts, emphasizing the logic and precision required to master numbers. The rhythm of the school day continued with other essential subjects such as geography, history, and grammar. Miss Johnson, a proponent of a broad-based education, ensured that her students were exposed to a wide range of topics. Geography lessons unfolded like adventures, with Miss Johnson using maps to take her students on journeys to distant lands. They learned about cultures, customs, and landscapes, their imaginations soaring as they traced their fingers across continents. History came alive as Miss Johnson wove tales of past civilizations, heroes, and events that shaped the world. The students listened, captivated by stories of long ago, understanding that the past held valuable lessons for the present. Grammar lessons were equally engaging as Miss Johnson emphasized the power of language. She taught her students to use words effectively, to craft sentences that flowed, and to communicate with clarity. Throughout these lessons, Miss Johnson employed a variety of teaching methods. She used storytelling to make learning more engaging and memorable. For example, when teaching about ancient Egypt, she might describe a pharaoh's journey to the afterlife using vivid language to bring the story to life. This approach not only captured the students' attention, but also helped them understand complex concepts in a more relatable way. Miss Johnson also incorporated interactive activities into her lessons. For instance, while teaching about plants and animals, she might bring in specimens for her students to observe. They could examine the leaves of different trees, compare the skeletons of various animals, or dissect flowers to learn about their parts. These hands-on experiences made learning more concrete and enjoyable for the students. Moreover, Miss Johnson recognized the value of experiential learning. She believed that learning should not be confined to the classroom. So she took her students on field trips to places like museums, parks, and historical sites. At a museum, they could observe artifacts from different cultures, fostering an appreciation for history and diversity. In a park, they could study plants and animals in their natural habitat, deepening their understanding of science. Visiting a historic site, they could walk through a pivotal location from the past, making history more tangible and meaningful. The midday bell rings, signaling a break in the school day. The students rise from their desks, their hands leaving smudges on the wooden surface. The classroom door opens, admitting a rush of fresh air that stirs the room into activity. Some students step out to greet their friends, their voices echoing in the open space. Others pull out their lunches, sharing their food with those who may have forgotten theirs. The camaraderie is palpable as they exchange stories about their weekend adventures or the latest news from around town. The midday break was not just a time for rest and nourishment, but also for building friendships and creating memories that would last a lifetime. As the afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows, casting long shadows on the floor, the students returned to their desks, their faces flushed with the joy of midday play. The routine of the afternoon followed much like the morning, with lessons continuing until the final bell rang, signaling the end of the school day. When the final bell echoed through the schoolhouse, the students surged forward, eager to escape the confines of the classroom. They dashed out the door, their laughter blending with the birdsong. As they ran, their voices carried tales of the day's adventures, teasing of upcoming escapades. The schoolyard became their kingdom, the boundaries of their world. They chased each other through the tall grass, their shrieks of delight echoing across the fields. They climbed trees, their small hands gripping branches as they pretended to be explorers scaling unknown heights. The schoolyard was more than just a playground. It was a place where imagination ran wild, where friendships were forged, and where the carefree spirit of childhood knew no bounds. If you enjoyed this glimpse into an 1800s classroom, we've got more historical classroom videos for you to explore. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on our latest historical adventures. Now, if you could design your dream one-room schoolhouse lesson, what would it be like? Tell us about it in the comments section below. We'd love to hear your ideas. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed this unique educational journey through history. Don't forget to hit the like button if you want to see more videos like this. Your support means a lot to us. Subscribe and join our growing community of history enthusiasts. Well, it's time to go back to school. Can you name that tune? If you guessed the Back to School Blues, then you're a lot smarter than the average person in 1817. See, during the 1800s, schools didn't follow the September start date we're all used to now. In fact, rural schools were most likely to start in December, right after Christmas. It wasn't uncommon for children to trudge through snowdrifts up to their waists just to get to school. But once inside, the routine was fairly typical. After the opening prayer, lessons would begin. Unlike today, where each grade level has its own classroom and carefully structured curriculum, the 1800s classroom was a single mixed-stage environment. 6-year-olds might be learning the alphabet while 15-year-olds wrestled with geometry all under the same roof. The teacher managed this juggling act by calling students forward in groups or classes based on their level. While one group recited spelling words aloud, another might be quietly copying math problems onto their slate. Those waiting their turn sat on long wooden benches, listening, whispering, or practicing their work. This system worked better in some subjects than others. History was a popular subject, and all ages could learn the same facts. When it was story time, everyone sat in a circle and listened as their teacher read aloud. Sometimes the class joined in, reciting well-known passages by heart. For example, every child from New England knew these opening lines from the first chapter of the Pilgrim's Progress. He that came to deceive us, but not everyone agreed that such a hodgepodge of students was a good idea. Horace Mann believed that students learned best when grouped with their peers. He suggested that schools should be divided into departments. Elementary school students would go to one set of rooms, middle school students to another, and high school students to yet another. Unfortunately, there weren't enough teachers to make this plan work, at least not without a lot of extra training. So multi-grade classrooms continued for several more decades. One of the biggest challenges facing teachers was keeping order. Classes were rarely large enough to need multiple rooms, but they were big enough to be chaotic. Some teachers struggled to maintain control. Their punishments ranged from the logical to the brutal. A particularly creative punishment for talking out of turn was to have the students stand in the corner facing the wall. Detention meant sitting on a low stool in the hall after class. More serious offenses, like cheating or falling asleep, resulted in a good old-fashioned spanking. More creative teachers might send the naughty child to sit in a thinking chair, a bucket, or even a 5-gallon can. Some even came up with a system of rewards, giving out gold stars or other tokens for good behavior. Others believed in positive reinforcement, praising students for doing well. But the vast majority of teachers relied on intimidation to keep order in their classrooms. A harsh word or an angry glare was usually enough to quiet down rowdy students. Of course, sometimes teachers took things too far and meted out cruel and unusual punishments. One teacher reportedly tied a boy to his desk with a rope. Another forced students who fell asleep to stay in the classroom overnight. There were even cases of teachers whipping their students. Fortunately for everyone involved, such extreme measures were rare. In the one-room schoolhouse, the bell rang to signal the end of one lesson and the start of the next. After reading, writing, and arithmetic, it was time for something less academic, like singing or recitation. Often the entire class would recite a passage from memory. This helped them remember important facts and gave them a chance to practice speaking in public. Recitations could also be funny. Students acted out dialogues in front of the class, mimicking different characters. Sometimes the skits got pretty wild. Girls pretended to be cats hissing and fighting over a dead fish. Or boys pretended to be circus performers tumbling and making balloon animals. Singing was another favorite pastime, and every good teacher knew how to lead the class in a rousing chorus. Even the most unruly students couldn't help but join in. The songs covered a wide variety of topics. Some were patriotic anthems, others told Bible stories, and still others were just plain silly. Here's an example of one of those nonsense songs that kids sang to annoy a teacher named Mr. Snaith. Oh, Mr. Snaith, he sits and dreams. Oh, Mr. Snaith, he often seems asleep in his big chair. He takes a nap and then he taps his little gavel. He raps and says, "Are we all done?" Then he takes another nap. We laugh and play, and then he'll say, "Come children, join in the play." Oh, Mr. Snaith, he likes to play. Of course, no school day was complete without a little bit of spelling. The whole class stood up and repeated words in unison. B, C, D, E, F, G. Then they went back to their seats and wrote them down on their slates. Teachers liked this exercise because it made it easier to spot a struggling student. If someone spelled cat as C, TH, it was obvious that they needed some extra help. The entire class took turns spelling the word separate, S-E-P-R-A-T-E. When a word was especially difficult, the class would break into smaller groups and sound out the syllables. Once they had it, they wrote it down on the board. The teacher circulated among the groups, offering tips and encouragement. Occasionally, she stopped to watch a pair of students intently working on a word. That's a tough one. Let's see what you come up with. Then it was time for the spelling bee. This contest pitted student against student in a battle to see who knew the most words. First, one or two students stood in front of the class as everyone else recited the word. Lumber. They spelled it correctly and moved on to the next. Elephant. Who knew it? Someone new stepped forward and spelled it out. E-L-E-P-H. T round after round. The students faced off, spelling words that got longer and harder. Every so often, someone would stumble. If they hesitated for too long, the teacher would help them out by saying the first letter. L-U-M-B-E-R. The student finished the word and everyone sat down. The winner of the spelling bee got to be the teacher's assistant for the day, which was quite an honor. Now it was time for the final activity of the day. That's right, it's recess. Out they all ran, eager to burn off some steam. On the playground, the students split up into teams and played games like leapfrog and prisoner's base. The boys climbed trees and played tag. The girls skipped rope and played hopscotch. Everyone laughed and shouted as they ran around the yard. After an hour or so, the bell rang again, and it was time to go home. The students lined up and walked out together, chattering about their plans for the afternoon. Most of them headed straight to the fields and meadows near their homes, where they could explore nature, pick wild flowers, or watch farm animals. Some students spent their free time at home helping their families with chores like milking cows, collecting eggs, or weeding the garden. Although their days were long and tiring, the children didn't mind. They loved learning and playing with their friends. For many, it was the highlight of their day. Now it's your turn. Click here to take a quiz about one-room schoolhouses. Then watch this video about a one-room schoolhouse in Kentucky. Finally, try this fun activity from the 1800s. What's the capital of France? What continent is known as the cradle of civilization? And can you tell me the coordinates of London? If you know the answers to these questions, chances are you have a pretty good grasp of geography. But this wasn't always the case. Before the 20th century, geography and other subjects were taught very differently. So let us take a step back in time to explore the geography that kids learned in the early 1900s. We'll start with arithmetic. Although the subject goes back thousands of years, its role in early 20th century classrooms was crucial. Back then, arithmetic was all about rote learning, which means you learn facts by repeating them over and over again until they become ingrained in your memory. It was like learning the multiplication tables, but instead of learning 2 times 2 is 4, students were reciting 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 4 is 8, and so on until they had mastered all the numbers up to 10. This chanting continued until the answer to any multiplication problem from 1 to 10 was immediately available. Memorizing these multiplication tables was not only an exercise in mental agility, but also in discipline and uniformity. The whole class would recite the tables in unison, creating a wave of voices echoing the same rhythms and numbers. There was no room for individual differences in pace or understanding. Each student was expected to keep up with the rest, to match the speed and accuracy of the entire group. This practice continued until the multiplication tables were firmly stamped into their memories, becoming a part of their everyday knowledge. But arithmetic wasn't limited to calculations. Word problems, also known as sums, were equally important. These problems came in various forms, but many had a practical, sometimes folksy ring to them. One such might go: if a farmer sells 3 barrels of apples for $1 each, how much money does he earn in total? Such problems weren't just about numbers. They wove a narrative that students had to understand and solve. It was like a mini story where numbers were the characters. Solving these sums required more than just arithmetic skills. It demanded a certain level of reading comprehension, logical thinking, and the ability to translate everyday situations into mathematical terms. Even though there were some similarities between the math lessons of the past and present, the tools were vastly different. Nowadays, we have calculators that can perform complex calculations in a blink. And if we need to check our work, we can simply use a pencil and paper. Back then, students relied primarily on chalk and slate. Yes, mistakes could be wiped clean with a damp cloth, but writing numbers and working out problems took much longer. This made keeping track of progress both tedious and challenging. Imagine having to write out every single step of a long division sum on a slate. By today's standards, it sounds incredibly slow and cumbersome. Despite these challenges, the emphasis on arithmetic in early 20th century schools aims to produce individuals who were not just mathematically proficient, but also disciplined and detail-oriented. Learning arithmetic was like a boot camp for the mind, training it to be precise, patient, and persistent. And the culmination of this rigorous learning process was a moment of triumph. When a student could confidently solve a problem, whether it was a multiplication sum or a complex word problem, it was a significant achievement. It signified not just an understanding of numbers, but a mastery over them. For many students, this was more than just a lesson in arithmetic. It was a lesson in self-confidence and the satisfaction of a job well done. Moving on, let's talk about geography. In an age before Google Maps and smartphones, geography played a vital role in shaping young minds. Despite the scarcity of maps, geography lessons were still considered crucial. When maps were available, they were used to teach children about the world beyond their immediate surroundings. They traced the outlines of continents, identifying major land masses and oceans. This hands-on learning not only helped them visualize the world, but also internalized its physical features. Reciting names of rivers, mountains, and famous places was another common activity. By committing these names to memory, children created a mental map of the world, understanding its key geographical landmarks. Geography in the early 1900s wasn't just about memorization. It was about instilling a sense of wonder about the world. Through stories and descriptions in their textbooks, children learned about diverse cultures, climates, and landscapes, fostering a sense of curiosity about the wider world. A key aspect of geography education was learning capitals of countries. This wasn't just about knowing that Paris was the capital of France. It was about understanding the relationship between a nation and its seat of government. Each capital city represented a country's heart of political power. As children recited the names, they were also internalizing the idea of governance and the importance of these cities in the global political landscape. Similarly, learning the largest cities in the world went hand in hand with understanding population and urban centers. It wasn't just about numbers, it was about grasping the concept of urbanization and the significance of these cities in terms of size and perhaps economic importance. In addition to traditional textbooks, globes were highly prized teaching aids. If a school was fortunate enough to own one, it became a source of fascination for students. The spinning globe allowed children to visualize the world in 3 dimensions, helping them understand the Earth's curvature and the relative sizes and positions of countries. The experience of looking at a spinning globe left a lasting impression on many students, fostering a sense of awe and perspective about our planet. But despite the efforts to make geography lessons engaging and interactive, there was still a heavy emphasis on memorization. Children were often expected to know a lot of facts about places, capitals, and landmarks. While this approach may seem outdated now, it was a product of the times. Interestingly, in the early 1900s, the teaching of geography was closely linked to the subject of history. It wasn't uncommon for these two subjects to be taught together, or for historical events to be explained using geographical knowledge. This blended learning approach aimed to give students a deeper understanding of the world by connecting its physical features with human activities and historical narratives. Geography textbooks often wove tales of explorers, traders, and conquerors into their narratives, making learning about places and regions more engaging. By understanding the historical context of a place, children could grasp the reasons behind the development of cities, trade routes, and cultural practices. This integrated approach aimed to create a holistic understanding of the world, linking its physical makeup with the stories of humanity that had unfolded across it. Now let's move on to some frequently asked questions about early 20th century geography lessons. First, how did students learn about ancient civilizations like Egypt and Greece? They learned about ancient civilizations through stories and descriptions in their textbooks. The focus was on understanding the achievements and contributions of these civilizations rather than on specific dates and timelines. Second, what kind of maps were used in early 20th century classrooms? The type of maps used varied depending on the resources of the school. Some common ones included wall maps that were mounted on classroom walls, providing a large-scale view of continents or regions. Student atlases containing smaller, more detailed maps that were used for individual study or group work, and globes. If the school was fortunate, globes provided a three-dimensional representation of the Earth, helping students visualize the size and shape of countries and other geographical features. Third, how did geography lessons connect with other subjects? Geography often intertwined with history. Historical events were explained using geographical knowledge, and the two subjects were frequently taught together. Fourth, how did students demonstrate what they had learned? Students showed their learning through various means, including recitations, where they would stand up and recite facts about places or regions. Map labeling exercises where they would identify and label countries, rivers, and other geographical features on a blank map. And oral or written exams where they would answer questions about their geographical knowledge. Fifth, how did geography lessons reflect national identity? Geography lessons often emphasized the greatness of their own country, instilling a sense of patriotism in students. Textbooks would highlight the achievements and natural wonders of their own nation, while perhaps portraying other countries in a less favorable light. That brings us to the end of our journey through the geography lessons of the early 1900s. We've explored how arithmetic was taught through repetition, how geography lessons often emphasize national identity, and the role of maps and globes in the classroom. Now, I want to hear from you. How do you think the methods of teaching geography and arithmetic have changed since the early 1900s? And what do you think of the methods used back then? Picture a classroom bustling with activity. Children are seated in rows, some diligently writing, others daydreaming. Suddenly, a hand shoots up, eager to answer the teacher's question. When called upon, there's a pause, then a rush of hands. In the cacophony of voices, one stands out, firm and authoritative, the teacher. Their gaze sweeps the room, ensuring attention before continuing the lesson. This scene isn't from a 19th century novel. It's from our reality. Welcome to my channel. And today we're going to take a journey back to the 1800s to explore what school life was really like. Brace yourself for an eye-opening experience. You won't believe what went on inside those classrooms. Get ready to uncover the secrets of education in the 1800s. One-room schoolhouses discipline and order, of course. Maintaining discipline in a room filled with dozens of children of different ages was no small task. Teachers relied heavily on order and routine. The arrival of students was met with a ritual, the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by scripture reading and prayer. Once the day's lesson commenced, talking was strictly prohibited. If students couldn't contain themselves, they were sent to the hallway to cool off. More severe cases involved standing in the corner or reciting their multiplication tables until they could rejoin their classmates. Occasionally, physical punishment was employed, such as being struck with a ruler on the knuckles or the dreaded hickory stick. While corporal punishment might seem brutal by today's standards, it was considered an essential part of education. The underlying philosophy was that children needed to learn obedience not just for the classroom, but for life. A disciplined child, so the thinking went, would grow into a responsible adult ready to serve family, community, and country. Interestingly, the teacher's authority wasn't solely about academics. They were often tasked with instilling moral values and shaping good character. Reciting daily affirmations like "be honest" or "be kind" was common practice. Moreover, punctuality, neatness, and respect for elders were all part of the curriculum. Education wasn't merely about acquiring knowledge, it was about becoming a model citizen. The role of memory. Now, let's turn our attention to the heart of the learning process, the role of memory. Education in the 1800s placed a premium on rote memorization. Students were expected to commit long passages from religious texts, speeches, and poems to memory. This wasn't just about reciting words, it was about imprinting them on the young minds so deeply that they wouldn't be forgotten. Classrooms echoed with the rhythmic chant of students reciting in unison. This practice not only helped students memorize, but also fostered a sense of unity and discipline. The multiplication tables, the alphabet, spelling lists, moral lessons, all were fair game for this kind of memorization. Imagine walking into a classroom where children are reciting, their voices blending in a sea of sound. You might wonder why such a heavy emphasis on memory. The answer lies in the educational philosophy of the time. It wasn't about fostering creativity or critical thinking. Rather, it was about impressing information into students so they could retain it for life. From a teacher's perspective, each verse recited, each table learned was a victory, a step toward literacy, competence, and moral improvement. However, for the students, this constant drilling could be exhausting, both mentally and physically. Rote memorization, while effective in its way, left little room for individual pace or learning styles. Nevertheless, it was the dominant force in 19th century education. The teacher's influence now, let's focus on the pivotal figure in this educational landscape, the teacher. During the 1800s, the role of a teacher went beyond imparting knowledge. They were cultural influencers, shaping young minds in various aspects of life. While teaching was primarily a profession for women, men were not absent. Male teachers were more likely to be found in higher institutions like academies and colleges. Regardless of gender, teachers were expected to be role models, embodying the values they sought to instill in their students. They came from diverse backgrounds. Some were recent college graduates, while others had years of experience. What united them was a dedication to their craft and a commitment to the betterment of their students. The curriculum they followed often consisted of 3 Rs: reading, writing, and arithmetic. These were fundamental skills deemed essential for everyday life and future endeavors. History, geography, and moral lessons were also part of the mix. Teachers weren't just imparting information. They were cultivating good character and preparing students for active citizenship. They believed that education was a tool for social mobility and were committed to providing their students with the best possible start in life. The textbook revolution. Let's shift our focus to the tools that shaped young minds, textbooks. The 1800s witnessed a significant evolution in textbook publishing, laying the foundation for modern educational materials. Prior to this era, textbooks were scarce and often expensive, limiting access to education. However, with advancements in printing technology and a growing emphasis on public education, Textbooks began to proliferate. Publishers recognized the potential market and started churning out affordable textbooks in larger quantities. This development had a profound impact on education. Textbooks became the primary carriers of knowledge, dictating what was taught and how. They provided a structured, standardized approach to learning, making education more accessible and consistent. Subjects like math, science, and language arts benefited greatly from this revolution. With a textbook in hand, students could explore concepts and practice problem solving. Teachers, too, had a valuable resource to guide them through lessons and assessments. But it wasn't all about content. Textbooks also played a crucial role in shaping young minds. Their contents often aligned with the moral and societal values of the time, instilling character and discipline. They presented a structured path to learning, laying the groundwork for future academic pursuits. This explosion in textbook availability was a significant milestone, democratizing education and paving the way for widespread literacy and knowledge dissemination. The value of education. Now, let's delve into the broader significance of education during the 1800s. People in this era recognized that education was not merely about acquiring knowledge, but about transforming lives and shaping societies. The value of education was multifaceted. It was seen as a means to secure a better future, to break cycles of poverty, and to foster informed and engaged citizens. Literacy was highly prized as it opened doors to greater opportunities and self-improvement. Education was considered essential for personal growth, character building, and the advancement of society. The impact of education was so profound that individuals and communities invested considerable resources into creating schools and hiring qualified teachers. The benefits of education extended beyond the individual, contributing to the overall progress and well-being of society. Education was seen as a cornerstone of democracy, equipping citizens with the knowledge and critical thinking skills necessary to participate actively in civic affairs. Unveiling the past, shaping the future, we've journeyed through the classrooms of the 1800s, where discipline and rote memorization reigned. We've seen the influence of educators who not only imparted knowledge, but also shaped young minds. The textbook revolution and the realization of education's broader value have also been explored. As we reflect on this journey, we're reminded of the evolution of education and the enduring importance of teaching and learning. The methods and values of the past continue to resonate, shaping our educational landscape today. By understanding the education of the 1800s, we gain a deeper appreciation for the foundations upon which our modern educational systems are built. It's an invitation to cherish the progress we've made while recognizing the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead in our pursuit of quality education for all. Thank you for joining us on this educational adventure. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to show your support. Your engagement helps us continue to bring fascinating historical insights to you. Stay tuned for more captivating journeys through time. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep learning. And if you have any comments or suggestions, feel free to drop them below. Thanks again for watching. In today's world, school buildings are often considered an essential part of any community. They serve as hubs of learning where children can discover new things, explore their talents, and develop into well-rounded individuals ready to contribute to society. But did you know that education has always played a crucial role in society? Picture yourself stepping through the threshold of a one-room schoolhouse nestled in a small town. The year is 1830, and you find yourself seated on a wooden desk ready to embark on a journey through education during this period. The schoolroom is modest yet filled with potential. Sunlight streams through a large window, illuminating dust particles dancing in its rays. A chalkboard stands proudly at the front, adorned with the beginnings of multiplication tables or perhaps the names of the planets in our solar system. Desks are arranged in rows facing the teacher, and each desk is occupied by eager young minds. Some students are engrossed in their books, while others are engaged in lively discussions. The air is filled with the scent of chalk, dust, and the sound of pencils scratching against paper. As you settle into your seat, the morning bell rings, signaling the start of another day of learning. Your teacher enters the room, a beacon of knowledge and discipline. His or her presence commands respect and admiration from the students. After the formalities of the day are over, the class erupts in activity. Lessons are interactive, designed to engage both the mind and body. The rhythmic cadence of the teacher's voice echoes through the room as he or she guides the students through various subjects, starting with reading. The alphabet is held sacred, and reciting it daily is a ritual ensuring that these precious letters become ingrained in every student's memory. Numbers are introduced next, opening the door to the world of mathematics. Simple sums are tackled first, and then more complex equations are solved as the students progress. Geography plays an important role in the curriculum, fostering a sense of wonder and curiosity about the world beyond their small town. The vast landscapes of continents and oceans are explored, instilling in the young learners a sense of global citizenship. Writing is taught with meticulous attention to detail. Each stroke of the pen or pencil is carefully guided by the teacher, ensuring that neat and legible handwriting becomes a hallmark of the student's education. In history, the past comes alive as the teacher narrates tales of valiant heroes, epic battles, and moments that shaped the course of civilization. As the sun climbs higher in the sky, the intensity of the lessons may ease slightly, but the thirst for knowledge remains undimmed. Recess arrives, bringing a welcome break from academics. The children rush out into the playground, their laughter echoing through the air as they engage in friendly competitions and games. During recess, friendships are forged that will last a lifetime, and the bonds of camaraderie grow stronger. Meanwhile, back in the classroom, the atmosphere shifts to the study of nature and science. The wonders of the natural world are explored through simple experiments and observations, instilling in the young minds a sense of awe and respect for the delicate balance of the ecosystem. Finally, religion is given due importance. Prayers and moral lessons are integrated into the curriculum to cultivate good character and instill spiritual values. The day draws to a close and the final bell rings, signaling the end of another day of learning. The students gather their belongings and prepare to depart, their minds brimming with the day's lessons. As they step out of the schoolhouse, the setting sun casts long shadows, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The journey home is a time for reflection as the young learners recount the day's events to their families, sharing their newfound knowledge and experiences. Within the four walls of that one-room schoolhouse, countless stories unfolded. Dreams were nurtured, aspirations were kindled, and young lives were shaped. This humble abode of learning stood as a testament to the transformative power of education in shaping individuals and communities alike. Now let us take a step back in time and explore what life was like for a typical student in a one-room schoolhouse during the early 19th century. Life as a student would have been quite different from our modern concept of schooling. The classroom was likely crowded with students of various age groups, all seated on rudimentary benches or simply standing around the room. Discipline was strict and corporal punishment was not uncommon. Students were expected to be attentive and obedient, and any form of mischief or non-compliance could result in harsh reprimands or physical penalties. The curriculum was primarily focused on the basics, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Religious instruction was also an integral part of the curriculum, instilling moral values and teachings from the Bible. Rote memorization was a key component of learning, with students being required to recite passages from the Bible, the Lord's Prayer, and other religious texts. The teacher, who often doubled as the local preacher, played a pivotal role in shaping young minds. They were typically stern and authoritative figures respected and sometimes feared by their pupils. The teaching methods were often rigid and demanding, with little room for creativity or individual attention. Students were drilled relentlessly to master basic skills such as reading from a McGuffey's reader, writing in a slate, and answering arithmetic problems. As the school day progressed, the lessons became more challenging. Geography and history were taught through rote memorization of facts and reciting from textbooks. Science was rarely given much attention, and the emphasis was primarily on religious teachings and practical skills. During the latter half of the day, the students would be split up by their levels of ability, with the more advanced ones working on increasingly difficult problems while the younger ones were given simpler tasks. Nonetheless, education was highly valued, and despite the challenges, students aspired to excel in their studies and gain the knowledge and skills necessary to succeed in life. The one-room schoolhouse, though rudimentary by today's standards, provided a foundation for learning that was essential for the personal and societal development of the time. So now let's dive deeper into the intricacies of the curriculum followed in those bygone days. Picture yourself sitting in a one-room schoolhouse where the walls are adorned with alphabet charts and maps of the world. The year is 1830, and you are a student eager to learn. What would a typical day of classes entail during this era? As you enter the classroom, you find yourself immersed in an environment where learning is paramount. The simple yet sturdy desks and benches are a testament to the commitment of those early educators in providing a space for knowledge to flourish. At the heart of this humble abode of learning is a teacher, a pivotal figure whose dedication shapes the young minds entrusted to their care. The teacher, often a stern yet compassionate individual, stands as a beacon of guidance, imparting the 3 Rs: reading, writing, and arithmetic, which are considered fundamental building blocks of education. Their presence commands respect, and their lessons leave an indelible impact on the students. The school day commences with a morning prayer, setting a religious tone for the lessons to follow. Reciting the Lord's Prayer and the 10 Commandments is a ritual that not only grounds the students in their faith, but also instills moral values that are expected to guide their conduct both in and outside the classroom. The Pledge of Allegiance is also recited, fostering a sense of patriotism and loyalty to the nation. Next comes the study of reading. The alphabet is revered as the gateway to knowledge, and mastering it is a significant accomplishment. The students practice their phonetic skills, sounding out each letter with precision before moving on to form words and eventually complete sentences. Once the basics of reading are secured, the class delves into spelling. Words are written on the chalkboard, and the students practice copying them down, striving for accuracy and legibility. Their pens move swiftly across the pages of their spelling books, committing these new words to memory. Writing is taught with meticulous attention to detail. The proper formation of letters, the structure of sentences, and the art of neat and legible handwriting are all emphasized. The students diligently copy sentences from their writing books, striving to emulate the graceful script of their teachers. Arithmetic is another cornerstone of the curriculum. Beginning with simple sums, the students gradually tackle more complex calculations. They learn to perform mental calculations, write out problems, and solve them with precision. The acquisition of mathematical skills is seen as essential for everyday life, trade, and commerce. Geography finds its place in the curriculum as well. The students learn about the world beyond their small town, exploring the vast landscapes of continents and oceans. They study maps, identify prominent landmarks, and learn about different cultures and economies. History is brought to life as the teacher narrates tales of historical figures, battles, and significant events. The students listen attentively, immersing themselves in stories that have shaped the course of civilization. These narratives not only entertain, but also instill a sense of patriotism and national identity. Lastly, religion receives due importance with Bible reading and moral instruction woven into the fabric of the curriculum. Students are taught the stories of creation, the lessons from parables, and the teachings of Jesus Christ. They are encouraged to live according to biblical principles, instilling values of kindness, compassion, and integrity. As the school day draws to a close, the students recite a closing prayer, reflecting on the lessons learned and the values embraced throughout the day. The one-room schoolhouse echoes with the voices of young learners eager to absorb knowledge and shape their destinies. Don't forget to stay tuned for more captivating historical insights. And if you enjoyed this journey through time, please give it a thumbs up and share it with others who would appreciate this nostalgic glimpse into the past. Thank you for joining us on this educational adventure, and we look forward to bringing you more fascinating content in the future.